Welcome to Pax Europiana. Here my answers to the questions about the current status and the agreement between Kosovo and Serbia. There is the rumor now that we have a possible deal, a German-French proposal for a framework agreement to conclude positively. And there is the question about, is a compromise possible in the questions of this dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia? And the second question is how that compromise could be, yeah? And if it's possible to conclude an agreement without mutual recognition. I mean, in principle, it's not possible to do that. Yeah, there shouldn't be agreement without mutual recognition, because it's just possible to postpone it, because that's basically the effect of it. So if we do an agreement now without recognition by Serbia of the Republic of Kosovo, the effect is that we have the very same question then when it's about EU membership of Kosovo and Serbia in 2029, or in that case possible later, because without mutual recognition both countries will never join the European Union. So why postpone it? It's much better to get things done right now. Second point is that we can, of course, consider one scenario where this is a possibility because of European compromises and everybody tries to do some kind of appeasement of Serbia, and then you can have an agreement without recognition. But I say, and I call for Kosovo only to accept such an agreement when there is a clear guarantee of NATO membership of Kosovo and Bosnia. That means all Balkans must be safe from Serbian aggression. No matter what the future is, Kosovo will be safe. So if Kosovo is allowed to be a member of NATO, and there Serbia has no veto, it's just a question of the allies accepting. But if Kosovo is a member of NATO, and then of course the recognition by Serbia is less important, because you are safe. Kosovo is safe. And that's the only circumstances under which I see that agreement without recognition has sense, when at the same time Kosovo and of course Bosnia, I'm also very much in favor of Bosnian NATO membership. So both victims of Serb aggressions in the 90s until today are safe forever by being full allies of NATO, and then the recognition is less important. And it's possible to postpone it, because ultimately it's only a postponement, because Kosovo and Serbia want to join the European Union, and before that absolutely all bilateral issues with the neighbors have to be settled. That means recognition is essential. And so if the French want to give Vucic 5 more years time, it's okay if NATO membership is achieved. And where can be compromises? That was the second question. Compromises are possible, and compromises are, there's always room for compromise. We have to talk and we have to find settlements, and so it's necessary, possible to have compromises, but there is no way there can be a compromise on sovereignty, on the question of recognition and statehood. So there is no compromise possible. Kosovo is an independent, free, recognized republic. No matter if Serbia wants that or not, it is a fact, and that must be respected by everybody. The compromises can be found on the question of war compensation, for example. That's of course a very hard concession, and I recommend for Kosovo only to accept such a thing when there is recognition. When Serbia now comes on the table and says, okay, we are ready to recognize, what are you ready to give? And then of course I have made now the case many times that Serbia should be offered immediately to have the euro the same like Montenegro and Kosovo. That's a kind of a concession by the European Union, because normally you get the euro only at the end of a long membership process. And of course, in the case of Kosovo, I can imagine if the deal is recognition by Serbia, that's a big price. Then obviously Kosovo can make concession to make, for example, the big price as well, to make no further legal claims by the Kosovo Republic against Serbia for all the atrocities, exploitation, apartheid, war damages and everything which was done. There's also several historic precedences for that in the German-Polish relation, for example, and in other countries, and in the German-Russian relations. You can, for example, then put the situation, you can legally and materially, but never psychologically and never politically, that's important, also say, okay, the chapter of the past is closed in the exchange of mutual recognition. There was a case like this between Germany and Poland for the recognition of the new borders of Poland and Germany post-World War II, and then they have also settled their financial things. Obviously, Poland tries to open that again, but I think it could be made in a sense that when for the recognition of the Republic, the claims of the past are settled, but not the political apologies, not the contrition. Because the big problem is, of course, that Serbia continues to be a revanchist power, and they continue to say terrible things, appoint people and honor people inside the state honor system who are war criminals, or put them in high state positions. Then they later die in Moscow on state visits. It's very bizarre situations. But the situation is that this would be possible. A big deal would mean Kosovo gives a concession, no to all the war reparations for exchange of mutual recognition between Kosovo and Serbia. That could be part of a peace treaty, for example. Such things are regulated in peace treaties, and then Kosovo and Serbia could basically leveling zero their mutual claims, their legal claims, because also Serbia claims to have some ancient whatever ownership rights on Trepča and other things. They could level that to zero. Kosovo levels the war damage cases and the personal indemnity cases to zero. And of course, that could be part of a peace treaty. I think, yes, that would be a major concession, because otherwise normally Serbia must pay billions of euros to Kosovo for all the terrible human rights abuses and the genocide they committed from Rajak to many of these places, where Serbian troops and Serbian state officials and Serbian guerrillas and militias and have committed horrible things in the name of the Serbian nation and state, and they should compensate the Kosovo people and the Kosovo state for all these atrocities. But that will be otherwise a very big legal challenge and a financial burden for Serbia, and for recognition this could be a possibility to exchange that. So that would be the ideas I would have and the recommendations I have for concessions. What never can be a concession on statehood and on sovereignty. If the Serbs are anyhow not ready for the recognition, which I personally think it's all a kind of fake debate, so basically recognition and this German-French deal will not materialize. So I say, in reality, let's focus on getting NATO ready. And this is the future. NATO is the future for Kosovo. Let's invest in defense. Let's be ready for defending Kosovo, and let's make sure that Kosovo is one-to-one ready for NATO standards. The army, the air force, of course Kosovo needs an air force. Of course the military rearmament of Kosovo is very important and must be a budgetary priority now after what we have seen, what Russia is able to do in Ukraine and how Ukraine has defended. Copy Ukraine, copy success. And you have seen in Serbia the political forces, many of them are very pro-Russian. That means you have to be ready to defend the Republic, and you have to be ready, not like with tweets and with discussions, but you have to be ready in the budget, in real investment, and it must be also a own defense industry in Kosovo, and you have to rearm Kosovo decisively to be able to defend the whole territory of Kosovo together, and also to convince NATO that you are a worthy ally, which in fact in education and training the forces are already there. But now, of course, you need to equip them appropriately and learn from Ukraine. This is the answer to the questions about concessions and about the questions of compromises. And I call for Kosovo to be a NATO member. This is the most important priority, and the rest will be a consequence of NATO membership. Thanks a lot. More to come from Pax Europiana. Bye.